Carrier aviation leaves almost no room for error. A normal launch or landing can become critical in seconds. In this video, we look at 12 real aircraft carrier incidents caught on camera, from ramp strikes and barricade landings to aircraft going over the side of the deck. Each case is shown with verified context: what happened, where it happened, and what is known about the crew and the aircraft. This is not just plane crash footage. It is a closer look at one of the most demanding environments in aviation.
Deck's moving a little. You're on glide slope. On glide slope.
On December 4th, 1996, a Marine Corps F-8 18C Hornet from VM FA 314 crashed during a night landing aboard USS Abraham Lincoln CVN-72 in the North Pacific, while the carrier was conducting sea trials and flight deck certification after maintenance at Puget Sound Naval Shipyard. The aircraft struck the stern of the carrier, skidded across the flight deck, and was lost in the ocean. The pilot, Captain Christopher Hodges, ejected onto the flight deck and survived. Official Navy records state that he was not seriously injured, while contemporary reporting said he landed before his parachute could fully deploy and suffered fractured spinal discs and severe abrasions. Claims about very rough seas, the exact parachute height, and the full radio transcript are not confirmed by the official sources I found. On December 15, 1970, a U.S. Navy C-2A Greyhound launched from USS Ranger CVA-61 during operations in the South China Sea. The aircraft, Bureau number 155120, belonged to Fleet Tactical Support Squadron 50. About 10 seconds after the Catapult launch, the Greyhound stalled and crashed into the sea. Search and rescue units responded immediately, but there were no survivors. Official DPAA records identify the pilot as Lieutenant Merrill Olin McCoy, Jr. A cargo shift is often mentioned in open-source descriptions, but the full official Navy mishap investigation has not been found in public records, so the exact cause should not be stated as confirmed. On October 29, 1989, a U.S. Navy T-2C Buckeye, Bureau number 158876, from Training Squadron 19, was attempting a touch-and-go landing aboard USS Lexington, AVT-16, in the Gulf of Mexico off Pensacola, Florida. The student pilot, Ensign Stephen E. Pontel, was making his first carrier landing attempt. During the approach, the aircraft came in low and slow, pitched up, rolled inverted, and struck the carrier's island structure before crashing onto the deck and exploding. Pontel and 4 people on the flight deck were killed, and 19 others were injured. The crash also damaged other aircraft parked on the carrier deck.
Aircraft ahead of the ship, put your cars up. 986. Okay, jog on me. Roger, Johnson 199 again. Well, what position now during the course is about
On March 9, 1987, a U.S. Marine Corps A-6 Intruder made an emergency Barricade landing aboard USS Ranger CV-61 in the Pacific. The aircraft had torn off one main landing gear during an earlier recovery attempt, leaving a normal arrested landing too dangerous. Captain Rand Atlas McNally and his bombardier navigator returned to the carrier at night, with the deck moving in heavy seas. Landing Signal Officer Commander John Bug Roach calmly talked McNally through the final approach. The Intruder struck the Barricade, was caught by the net, and came to a stop on deck. Both crew members survived.
Little power on, little more power, little more power, just a little. Cut, 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 cut. Drop your nose, drop your nose. Stay with it, stay with it, stay with it, stay with it.
Stay with it, you're good.
Beautiful.
Kick. Okay, 411, get your hose in and single bingo.
On April 18, 1995, a U.S. Navy F-14 Tomcat from VF-21 was caught in the jet blast of another F-14 preparing to launch from USS Independence CV-62. The blast pushed the Tomcat across the flight deck until its nose gear slipped over the deck edge. With the aircraft hanging over the side and no way to know whether it would fall, the pilot and RIO ejected. Both were recovered from the water within minutes by HS-14 SH-60F Seahawk helicopters. The Tomcat did not sink. After fuel was removed, the aircraft was recovered back onto the carrier. This was a flight deck accident, not a classic crash.
Lightning, respond to me.
617 inbound.
Okay.
On February 15, 1991, during Operation Desert Storm, a U.S. Navy A-6E Intruder from VA-85 Black Falcons returned to USS America CV-66 after being hit by ground fire. The aircraft, Bureau number 155602 and Modex AB513, was losing hydraulic fluid, but still made a successful arrested landing. After leaving the arresting wire, the crew could not retract the tailhook, steer, or stop the aircraft. As the Intruder rolled toward the edge of the angled deck, Lieutenant Commander J. Mack Williams and Lieutenant L. Fox ejected. The aircraft came to rest tail up near the deck edge, but other strike aircraft were returning low on fuel. To clear the flight deck quickly, the damaged A-6E was pushed overboard into the Persian Gulf. Both crew members survived. On November 8, 1998, during night carrier qualifications about 120 miles off the Virginia coast, a U.S. Navy EA-6B Prowler, Bureau number 163885, from VAQ-130, landed on a fouled deck aboard USS Enterprise CVN-65. An S-3B Viking, Bureau number 159733, from VS-22, had already landed and had not cleared the landing area. The Prowler struck the Viking, and both crews ejected. The two Viking crew members survived with injuries, but all four aboard the Prowler were killed. Lieutenant Commander Kurt Barrich and Lieutenants Junior Grade Brendan Duffy, Charles Woodard, and Meredith Loughran. The collision caused a fire on the flight deck, which was quickly extinguished. On July 11, 1994, a U.S. Navy F-14A Tomcat, Bureau number 162602 from VF-51 Screaming Eagles, suffered a ramp strike while landing at night aboard USS Kitty Hawk CV-63. The landing took place in very difficult conditions, with the carrier deck reportedly pitching heavily. During the final seconds of approach, the Tomcat came in too low and struck the carrier's round down. The crew ejected just after impact. The aircraft caught a wire, broke apart, and the rear section burned in the landing area, while the forward section slid away. Both crew members survived, but the pilot suffered serious injuries after coming down near the fire. The RIO escaped with minor injuries.
Get him out of there! Get him out of the fire! Two-0-5 approach. Said easy Delta, take you just 2.
On April 1, 2003, a U.S. Navy S-3B Viking from VS-38 Red Griffins went overboard from USS Constellation CV-64 during Operation Iraqi Freedom in the Arabian Gulf. The aircraft had completed an arrested landing, but while taxiing clear of the landing area, it malfunctioned and veered toward the port side of the flight deck. The Viking struck the safety netting and went over the edge of the carrier. Both crew members ejected into the water and were quickly recovered by an HS-2 Golden Falcons rescue helicopter. They survived with minor injuries, and no flight deck personnel were injured. The aircraft, Bureau number 160584, was lost. On February 21, 1968, a U.S. Navy F-8E Crusader from VF-191 made an emergency Barricade landing aboard USS Ticonderoga CVA-14 while operating off Vietnam. The aircraft was Bureau number 149222, according to a later first-person account attributed to pilot Hoss Pearson. He had zero oil pressure for more than an hour while returning from Haiphong. As he crossed the ramp, LSO Dick Tiny Pascal called for a little power. When Pearson added power, the engine quit. With the engine silent and no hook, the Crusader hit the Barricade, which stopped the aircraft on deck. On March 18, 2016, a U.S. Navy E-2C Hawkeye from VAW-123 attempted an arrested landing aboard USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, CVN-69, off the Virginia coast. The aircraft caught the number 4 wire, but the arresting gear failed to slow it properly. The cross-deck pendant parted, swept across the flight deck, and injured 8 sailors. The Hawkeye rolled off the angled deck, dropped dangerously low, then regained flight and returned safely to Chambers Field at Naval Station Norfolk. The aircrew was not injured. The investigation traced the failure to maintenance troubleshooting errors that misprogrammed a valve controlling arresting gear pressure and energy absorption. On May 12, 1945, Marine Fighter Squadron 513 was practicing carrier qualifications aboard USS Vella Gulf, CVE-111, off Southern California. During a catapult launch, an FG-1D Corsair, flown by Second Lieutenant Edward Clifford Groves, climbed steeply after leaving the deck and rolled at very low altitude before entering the water ahead of the carrier. Groves did not survive. The case is often associated with the torque roll tendency of early Corsair variants, where correct trim and control inputs during launch were especially important.